Most of us know Belgium as a great beer maker, but did you know they also make whiskey? Hey there, I'm Nath Martyn, the Whisky Scribe. Taste is subjective, whiskey is diverse, and this channel is all about understanding it well enough to enjoy it on your own terms. Now, I recently just finished a video series where I delved into every single country in the world that's making whiskey, and I was blown away by the number of countries that are making whiskey to a commercial standard. Now, one of those countries is Belgium. We all know of Belgium for making fantastic beer, but they also make whiskey and have been doing so for almost 20 years. Now, probably the most acclaimed whiskey brand from Belgium is Belgian Owl, and fortunately I've got a whiskey friend, Uncle Baldrick.
I have a plan, sir.
Really, Baldrick? A cunning and subtle one?
Yes, sir.
And we sometimes send samples back and forth between each other, and he was able to send me a number of European whiskies that I've never tried before, including a sample of Belgian Owl. Now, I'm really keen to try this, but I love a good whiskey story, so we've got to dive into the history just a little bit. So this is made at the Owl distillery in the Hesbaye region. They have a fair trade partnership with 29 farmers from the region, supplying their barley with a commitment to sustainable agriculture. They started laying down barrels in 2004 and they released their first whiskey in 2007. Now, 2007 is the year that a Belgian whiskey was first released, but they weren't the first. So the first distillery to release a Belgian whiskey in 2007 was Lavalier Distillery, which released Goldlees, a grain whiskey, but Belgian Owl released their first single malt. Now in 2013, Owl Distillery relocated, and when they built their new setup, they did it using 2 copper pot stills from the Caperdonic Distillery in Speyside, Scotland. So this whiskey today is made in Belgium with Belgian malted barley on Scottish copper pot stills. So with that in mind, this is the Belgian Owl first fill bourbon cask. It's an unpeated single malt whiskey, aged 36 months, that's 3 years, I don't know why they put it in months, in first fill bourbon casks. It's non-chill filtered, no colour added, 46% ABV. Now, I'm not going to go into pricing because this is a whiskey that's available throughout Europe and the UK, and every single country's got a slightly different price. Whatever I say is going to be wrong for someone, but let's just crack into it. Now, for 3 years in ex-bourbon casks, this is still actually pretty light colour. I would call this a very light straw colour. But if we swirl it around, it does have some pretty nice thick legs. And colour's not everything. I'd much rather a whiskey look like this than have a whole lot of E150A added. So let's judge it on the nose. It's interesting. This is, as far as the nose goes, there's a lot of grain notes there. It actually smells a little bit like dry, musty sort of straw. Yeah, you're really getting the grain on the nose. Yeah, so there's a grainy sort of note, dry grass, that sort of thing. Faint little bit of citrus in the background, maybe. Maybe a bit of butteriness to it as well. Anyway, I'm not going to get much more on the nose. Slash, or whatever they say in Belgium. Cheers, Prost, I don't know. Huh. That is a really unusual flavor, and I'm actually struggling to work out how to describe it. So I just had to recheck my notes because it's first fill bourbon casks. Now, I've had plenty of Scottish whiskies that are first fill bourbon casks, and you're getting plenty of flavor notes coming out of the wood. But with this, I think just about everything that I'm getting is from the grain. It hasn't taken a lot of flavor out of the barrel. In that sense, I would call this quite a young whiskey, like maybe 3 years wasn't enough. It's not bad. It doesn't necessarily taste like new make, or if it does taste like their new make, it's very, very smooth. but you're not getting a lot of those typical notes that you tend to get out of the barrel interplaying with the whiskey itself. So I think the flavors that I'm getting here is almost like it's like an unsweetened, watered down beer flavor with a little bit of a kick and a bit of a buttery texture. I have to say, like, the mouthfeel is quite nice on this. It's got a smooth sort of creamy feel in the mouth, and there's interesting flavors there. The finish isn't too much to talk about. That creamy texture in your mouth does linger around for a little bit. You get a little bit of that alcohol sort of warmth in the chest. Those grainy sort of flavor notes on the palate dissipate reasonably quickly. But I just can't get over the profile of that, because I don't think I've ever tasted a whiskey that quite comes across like that. This is almost like if you took a beer, decreased the sugar content, watered down the beer flavor a little, but increased the alcohol content, and still somehow had it balanced and smooth. It's not bad, it's just 100% not at all what I was expecting from a whiskey. I think I was sort of expecting, I really don't know what I was expecting actually. This is first fill bourbon casks, so I don't know what other sort of barrels they're aging the whiskey in Belgium. If this is a classic example of Belgian whiskey, or if Belgian whiskey usually comes across a little bit differently. But it's different and it's unique, and usually if I'm trying a whiskey from another country, I want it to be that. I want it to be not just a Scottish style whiskey made in another place. And I have to say, this is that. And realistically, I don't think this would pair well with a beer though, because it just feels like a slightly different beer with a higher ABV. I don't dislike it. I'm glad I tried it. I don't know who this would be for. It might go well with some foods. I probably wouldn't buy a whole bottle, but I would be interested in trying another whiskey from Belgian Owl, and I'd be willing to spend money on another bottle to test it out, because this isn't bad. It's just a completely different flavor profile to, I don't even know what I was expecting. So yeah, I think who this whiskey would be for, if you were somebody who usually likes sort of more of those grainy sort of elements of whiskey, if you don't want too much of the interplay with the barrel, if you're actually a little bit more interested in the spirit itself, this is probably a really great example of that. But like I said, I don't know if this is a great example of what Belgian whiskey is usually like. I just know that this is the only Belgian whiskey I've ever had. If you like these kind of honest reviews, hit the subscribe button. I put up a video every single week. Sometimes it's an education piece, sometimes it's a review like this, but I'm usually trying to give you a really honest opinion of whiskies, and I'm always willing to try something different. And this was different. So that's Belgian whiskey, and I can tick that one off the bucket list. And it was great to follow up that World Whiskey series with tasting a whiskey that I honestly didn't think I was ever actually going to get a chance to try. If you've tried other Belgian whiskies, I would love to hear in the comments what they're normally like. Is this sort of on par? Is this similar to your experiences with them, or do they usually taste quite different? I would love to know. But I've also got a few more samples of European whiskies from Uncle Baldrick. Thank you again. And so I'll be tasting and reviewing those in the coming weeks. But for now, enjoy what's in your glass, no matter where in the world it's from, and slange. It's just really different.